I'm Susan Patricelli-Regan, the host of Connecticut Valley Views. And my guest today is Dr. Jordan Grossman. He's superintendent of Granby Public Schools in Granby, Connecticut. It's a pleasure to have you back, Dr. Grossman.
Susan, it's great to see you. And as I said the last time that we spoke, I wish we were in person.
I know.
Well,
perhaps
do that.
Right. Perhaps soon in the not too distant future.
I hope so.
Now, can you give us a sense of the status of the school year for teachers and students? How many are in full-time and how many virtual?
Yeah, Susan, that's a great question. Well, first, I need to say that our teachers, our staff, our school community have done a great job. As you know, we had our Stronger Together reopening plan, and it's gone great. I couldn't have asked for anything better. Our team has really done a nice job. And as you know, parents had an opportunity to either choose remote learning or in-person learning. We started out the year approximately 84 to 85% were in person, with approximately 15% being remote. That's kind of fluctuated back and forth. We're probably still around that same number, though each and every day we actually have more kids coming back into full in-person learning. And we've been like that since the third week of school for our elementary school kids and about 3.5 for our secondary kids. We've had a couple bleeps along the way where we've had to go switch to remote learning at Kelly Lane for a period of time and the high school. But overall, we've done a great job. Great job.
Well, really congratulations, because I know some other schools are struggling with that. And I guess picking up on those numbers, the virtual students, do you see them having to make up any classes or learning? Or
I don't, especially at the K-5 level. Our teachers, each grade level is assigned a teacher. So they're getting the same instruction that they would be getting in the classrooms. We were very diligent about that in making sure that our remote learners would not be penalized in any way for being at home. So they each have their own teacher for like grade 1, kindergarten, etc. So they've done a great job. The teachers, the parents, the students have done a great job. So I'm not really concerned about kids falling behind academically at the K-5 level. 6 through 12, it's the same thing. They're live streamed into the classrooms, so they're getting the exact same instruction of what's going on in the classroom. So the only piece is that they're not there. So they're getting the same.
So no one will have to revisit. No one will have to revisit courses, maybe in an exceptional circumstance.
Yeah, I think if a student has to revisit, they may have already, whether they were in school or not school, they would have maybe had to revisit. So we're really keeping a close eye on that. Remote learning is not for everyone, and some parents switch their children.
Sure.
But we're doing a nice job, and I got to thank everybody for that.
Well, that's great. All right. So with regard to the virus, have you seen any spikes with regard to issues in kids being out or sick or teachers after the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays?
Well, so it's interesting. On our website, we have a dashboard that we started about a month ago that really about 6 weeks ago now, that I think about, that shows every week how we've been doing relative to COVID numbers within the community, because that's one of the things that we really have to look at, that the Farmington Valley Health District says that we have to look at. When we came back, for example, from the holiday break in December, we had 11 cases within our school district, whether it be staff or students, but not one of them were in the building. So we didn't have to quarantine anyone. So people took our advice, whether they went away or they got it during the break. They didn't come into our schools. So the virus didn't come into our schools during that week. I think that week we had 11, but we didn't have to quarantine anyone. And today's date, I think, is what, the 21st, 21st. Susan? We do a Monday to Thursday or Friday to Thursday count.
Okay.
From last Friday to this Thursday, we've had 0 cases within our school that was reported to us, and 0 kids that are quarantined that relative to what happened this week. So that's a positive sign.
Yes.
I got to give the community of Granby credit, our teachers credit, and our students that our mitigation strategies are working. At least this week, it worked really well.
Have you had any, I'm going to sneak this question in. Have you had any self-mandates of coming back, teachers or students coming back after the holidays, having to take a test? I mean, are people taking tests, COVID tests or not?
No. So what there is within the state of Connecticut, there's a travel advisory. So if anybody went away, they did have to follow the travel advisory. And we did communicate that to families. And at the time that within the travel advisory, for when you come back, there was either a period of time you had to quarantine or be tested. So we did communicate that to families.
So obviously your staff, and you said you have a majority of students in school, so your staff or cafeteria and eating areas and so forth, that's all been fine too.
It has been. You know, we've done a great job. We have our distance that we need within the cafeteria when the masks are off, when kids are eating, and when they're on mask breaks. I can't speak enough about the job that our staff has done to really enforce the proper mitigation strategies that we're looking for.
Well, you know, Doctor, that whole culture of getting on board and working so well together starts at the top. So it starts with you. So that's great. Well, we have to recognize it. We have to recognize it because you set the tone and you set the pace and you set the structure. And as long as everybody follows it, then obviously it's been working, particularly during, you know, such a
too kind. You're too kind, Susan.
No,
it's totally a collective and a team effort, but you're too kind.
Well, all right. Now, parents, obviously, are parents driving their kids to school? Or
so we have, in the beginning of the year, it was a lot of kids being driven by their parents. And each and every day, our buses have increased with student population being on the bus, but we still have a majority of our students being driven by our families. But we still have plenty of kids that are on the buses too.
Well, that probably works pretty well with the parents driving because so many parents, I would imagine, are working from home, so they're able to fit it in.
You know, I just don't know. I got to give parents credit. They're making it work. They're partnering with the schools. Everyone is doing the best that they can to really keep kids in school and really making it during this most difficult time normal, as normal as it can be for kids. That's what we're really trying to do.
Now, are you
in a productive way?
Right. Now, in talking about parenting or actually working together, do you have regular updates from other school superintendents within Connecticut where you check with each other or help each other, support each other?
There's been more communication with superintendents and administrators than in my entire career. That once a week we meet as a Hartford area superintendents group. Once a week we meet as a Farmington Valley superintendents group, and then once a week the state of Connecticut has a call with the Department of Public Health with all superintendents in the state of Connecticut. So it's really, I guess if you take one positive thing out of it, that there's really good alignment and communication within the Hartford area and the Farmington Valley, certainly within the Farmington Valley.
Sure. Well, this may strengthen actually support going forward when hopefully we can get back to more normal times. This is going to make working on other projects or other things easier to do because you've got the association and you know, there and established. And people work much better when they feel that they've had a sense of I can trust them or I can work with them or they're reasonable. I mean, you get to know people better the more you have to work with them. And I think that's important. All right. Have you heard what's happening with regard to, you know, the vaccinations? I mean, have you heard when those are going to be available or Is it
Yeah,
going to be something the teachers have to do, or?
yeah, so
No?
there's so vaccinations is that slippery slope right now. It seems like it's a supply and demand
Right.
type of an issue. And as you know, within the state of Connecticut right now, we're at with the healthcare professionals group 1A and with 75 and older right now. And then the governor reported, I believe on Monday, that it's the next phase 1B, which 75 and older are in, would be 65 and older.
Mm-hmm.
And then the governor suggested that teachers and other essential workers, educators, grocery workers would be in the next phase of 1B, which possibly could be looked upon at the end of February or early March. I get it. And we'll support whatever the governor sets out to do, well, to vaccine rollout. We'll follow the protocols, and anyone that's 65 or above or 75 or above at this time, they need to sign up. But when the governor announces that essential workers will then sign up our employees so they can get into a system called VAMS.
Mm-hmm. Do you, with regard to your teachers, I guess it's somewhat of a personal question, but I guess, do you lean more towards having more younger teachers who will get vaccinated at a later date, or?
You know, I haven't really asked that question.
Okay.
It's a personal question.
Sure.
You know, of course, the health professionals and members of the state government are recommending that everyone gets vaccinated that's able to get vaccinated. So I really haven't asked teachers. We'll just be giving them the information. But I know that there are teachers that are waiting for this vaccine, and they will certainly line up and schedule an appointment.
Sure. Any conversation with parents who will or won't have their kids vaccinated? Has there been any discussion?
You know, no, we're totally not there yet, because the vaccine right now is just for 16 and older.
Yes.
So we're not even in that conversation yet.
All right. Now, all right, let's talk about budgets, which is obviously you've been impacted last spring and I guess early 2020. There were monies saved because there were a lot of things that you didn't need to have expenditures for because everybody was out of school. And so there's a cost savings there, and I believe you can turn that back in Granby. Some of that can be turned back to the Granby General Fund. But now expenditures, whether it's computers or what do you see that's impacting the budget going forward now for 2021?
Yeah. So we were last year, if you recall, when we closed the books, it was approximately over $900,000, maybe about $925,000 that we returned to the town, the Board of Finance, which is great. Yeah,
Right.
That's a good thing.
Right.
Because it was during a time of pandemic. You're right. We didn't use all the money that we budgeted for. This year was a whole different ballgame. That right off the bat, I knew that I was going to be over approximately $200,000 and $250,000, and I shared this with the Board of Ed and Board of Finance, just in custodial and supplies. And then I knew I was going to be over another $200,000, $250,000 for bus monitors. And then some other maintenance and supplies that we needed. So right out of the gate, I was approximately going to be $500,000 to $700,000 over. I think one time in the past 4 or 5 months, we were somewhere over $700,000 in the hole. And as a superintendent, that gives you a pit in your stomach, but also knowing that we were very transparent with the board and the Board of Finance that there were going to be costs to open up. But what we did was the federal government through the state offered districts grants to apply for. So we were very cognizant of that and reacted to that and did well with that. So we received a reimbursable grant for a lot of this in the amount of, I believe, about $560,000.
Oh, that's excellent. Oh,
So didn't cover all of it, but we did a nice job with that. So that now gets us to last night. We actually reported to the Board of Education with our being in the red about 120,000 in special ed,
okay.
but being in the plus, in the black, in our general ed budget right now of about $70,000. We're only in the red of about 61 or $62,000.
So net, yeah. So net.
That's that, and that's still knowing that we got to pay for more maintenance and custodial and bus monitors for the rest of the year. So we're doing all right. We're managing our budget pretty well here.
Okay, good.
And that helped us with the grant.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned special education. That normally is something that cost goes up every year. And you mentioned the fact that it's 120,000, I believe. What do you see it being different than other years, going up more? Are those students, the special education ones, are they still able to attend? Or they?
Sure, they're yeah. Some are remote, some are attending full in person. It just all depends. Special education, it's a moving target. You got to do what's best for children and what is specifically in their individualized education plan, and we do that. And we do a nice job with that, and we have great partnerships with parents in providing the best education we can for our students within our special education and pupil services program.
Right. Are there any lessons learned you would take away from this year? Anything in particular that strikes you in trying to anticipate for next year? I mean, are there any?
Well,
I know it's a bit ahead of the game, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But I guess with regard to graduation ceremonies, thoughts about that next year's school year, and you probably don't know till you get there because we don't know if there's a second round of a virus or whatever.
Yeah. So there's still a lot unknown. There's been a lot of lessons that have been learned. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned in a positive way is, and you mentioned it before, you got to surround yourself by really, really good people.
Mm-hmm.
And our team, our administrative team, our staff, everyone on our staff, just not teachers, custodial, cafeteria, our nurses have been champions.
Right.
Everybody on our staff has been. So what I've learned is never lose sight of that. Mm-hmm. Never lose sight of how important and how valuable members of your team are. Leadership, a leader's only as good as the people that are around that individual. Mm-hmm. And I've always known that, but I really learned that even more this year with people really coming together. There are some unknowns relative to what next year is going to look like. I think if the vaccine takes like people are hoping that it takes, I think that brings the somewhat, and I agree with it, some anxiety level down by individuals that are nervous, as people should be nervous of COVID. And I think next year will look different than it did this year. Yes. But you take our kindergarten kids, if you go into a classroom, they don't know any better.
I know.
They have masks on. They think this is what kindergarten's like.
It's amazing how they adapt.
This is how I come to school. Oh, okay. Yeah. So when we ask them a year from now or whenever they can take off a mask, they're going to be like, really? Yeah. This is what school looks like?
Yeah.
So we're going to take a lot of lessons, and we're going to be really methodical and strategic about what we do moving forward.
Yes. Well, now graduation ceremonies, plans for outdoors, indoors. What do you think? What do you think?
What's my gut think? I think that it will. The best case or worst case scenario is we have a graduation that looked like last year, which the kids absolutely loved it.
Right.
It was traditional. not traditional, but kids felt really good about being involved in a parade and going across the stage.
Yeah.
Do I think graduation will look different than it did last year? I do. I think
Okay.
we're in a different space than we were last year. I think we got to wait for further guidance from the state
Sure. Yeah,
and
of
what
course.
they're going to allow. But if we could go outside and people could be physically distanced apart and parents could be physically distanced apart, we may be able to have a traditional graduation. But this class may say, hey, we want to do what last year's class did.
Right.
So,
Well, speaking about outdoors and so forth and whatever, this brings me to a question about sports. Have you kept up with, outside or
so
exercised in some way or
who, me?
basketball?
Me, myself?
No basketball for the kids.
So
Or are they doing any?
Well, me myself, I got to exercise a little bit more than I'm doing, but we'll get there. Relative to our fall, we had a great fall season. I feel bad for our football players that didn't get to play, because they worked really hard preparing for this year, and I got to give credit to our seniors, and that team handled themselves with grace, class, and professionalism. I got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, that's
our other teams, the boys soccer, girls soccer, field hockey, volleyball, cross country, they all played. And we had a great fall. Our athletic director presented last night, and we had championships relative to league championships. So they had a great time. And on this past Monday, we started our winter sports. And kids realize that they have gifts right now, and they are taking it, and they're not being selfish about it. They're doing what they need to do and following the protocols that we have in place, because they know at any given day that it could be just taken away, and that's something new. So I got to credit our coaching staff and our athletes. I look forward to watching our teams play in the winter like I did in the fall.
Yeah, that's a big part of because generally speaking, sports, any athletic activities of any kind, are a nice balance for people when you're using your mental capacity in school all the time. It's also a sense of teamsmanship, which can be missed as well, because a lot of, as we said, you working with the other superintendents in Connecticut, and you form a close relationship when you're on the football team, the basketball team, or the wrestling team, or the swim team, or gymnastics, or whatever. You're forming relationships, and not only with amongst friends, but with the sports coaches and so forth, that are so inspiring. How many times do you hear people when they are advanced in their career somewhere along the line, and they say, "Oh, it was my coach. He was a coach. My football coach was the one that inspired me to whatever and gave me confidence when I didn't have it." All of that gets lost.
That's right. That's right. We have an outstanding coaching staff. Great role models for kids.
Right. Well, I'd like to take just a minute or two. I'm going to give the website so people can follow up on what's going on in the Granby schools. But I would like to mention that Julie Greeny and myself, we have awarded a scholarship program. It's a fine arts scholarship program that we set up back in 2017. And what it is, I established this 501c3 charity in memory of my mother, Sylvia Davis Patricelli. She was a very famous artist, internationally famous artist. And we set up this scholarship to provide tuition money for a graduating senior going on to a secondary school pursuing a career in the creative arts. So last spring, we didn't get to do it because of the whole COVID-19 thing, and we couldn't pursue it at that point. She did have people who had applied for the scholarship. It does require certain criteria and meet certain standards and so forth academically, submission, obviously, of work. And so I was very pleased to have our foundation do those first 3 years. And so we're hoping, we're talking about this spring, what we may be able to do this spring, so that someone going on to college, whether it be the Parsons School of Design or wherever, they do have to have an admission acceptance at their college. But we're looking forward to hopefully that happening, and then certainly, if not this year, then for 2021.
That's great. Thank
So
you.
anybody who would like to go on the website, see my mother's website, that would be www.sylvia, SYLVIA, davisart.org. And certainly can get hold of me through our channel of ctvalleyviews.com if they'd like to hear more about it, but they can go on the website. We look forward to it, and donations, of course, are
That's great.
graciously
Thank you.
accepted. So we're looking forward to partnering with you with that. And I would, anything else you'd like to add? Anything?
No, Sue, I want to thank you and Bill for allowing me to share a little bit about what's going on in the Granby Public Schools. And as I always say, I feel fortunate to be the superintendent of schools in Granby and lead this district and lead this community to provide what's best for our kids, and partner with the Granby community to do what's best for kids.
Well, I hope you know we've always supported you, the educational system. We're very proud of it. It's probably one of the greatest shining stars in this town is our education system. And we appreciate the fact you've been able to, since your beginning tenure, pick up the gavel, and particularly through such times as this. So we're very appreciative for your strong leadership.
Thank you.
It's needed. It's needed, no question.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give the website for the Granby Public Schools, and it's granby.k12.ct.us/. And I want to thank you again for being our guest today, and we'll look forward to catching up with you at some appropriate time in the future. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay. This is Susan Patricelli-Regan signing off for Connecticut Valley Views. We appreciate you joining us today. And again, see all of our shows on www.ctvalleyviews.com. And I want to thank our guest, specifically Dr. Grossman, for being my guest today.
Sylvia Davis Patricelli was an extraordinarily accomplished, internationally recognized portrait painter whose historical painting collection spanned 2 continents, the United States and Australia. Her first exhibition was opened by First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt at G. Fox & Company, Sentinel Hill Hall in Hartford, Connecticut, and sponsored by Beatrice Fox Auerbach, president of G. Fox, WTIC, and the Wadsworth Atheneum. See Sylvia's 501c3 charity website, which was initiated in 2017 to provide scholarships for high school seniors and secondary educational students pursuing a career in the creative arts. www.sylvia, SYLVIA, davisart.org. Thank you.